Hello, my name is Toby from Artmaster Studio, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my painting techniques and my thoughts on colours, etc. So here we have some Bicorne miniatures Dismounted Dragoons, English Civil War. They're very nice figures. So I wanted to talk about, first of all, the different reds that I've used. As you can see, there's a bit of variation amongst the unit. So first off, I'm going to point out that we've got 3 different reds going on. Here on the standard bearer, if I just zoom in, you'll be able to see it a bit better. There we go. So on the standard bearer, we've got a nice deep mid-red. Now this colour is to match the colour of the flags here. I'm not sure if you can see, it's kind of a nice mid-red on those flags, not too orange, although not too dark either. So that's the main colour, but also there's some variation in the form of a kind of a worn faded red, like on the officer. So his sleeves there, you can see they've got a tad more orange to them. And what I did with that is I took some mid-red, or red, from Vallejo model colour, and I added to that some dark rust. This is a nice dark brown, and that kind of made a dark reddy brown for the base coat. And from then on I added scarlet to lighten it. So scarlet is a bit more orange than the colour I just showed. And that kind of brings it up to be a more of a faded orange red. Also, we've got a dark red on this guy here. So that's quite nice, bit of contrast there. Not too much, they're not too drastically different, but they're different enough for it to be believable and kind of nice looking, because it would be a bit boring if the entire group had the same colour jacket. If they all looked clean pressed, brand new jackets, you know, they'd probably look all the same. But you know, the idea is some of these guys have been wearing the jackets longer than others, some of them have got new jackets, and I guess not all the time would the dye come out the same anyway. So some of them might be darker than others. So that's my thoughts on the different reds. So that makes up the jackets, but the trousers, you may see that some of them are in grey trousers, like the standard bearer here. There's 2 different greys I've used. So the grey on the standard bearer, that's kind of a true grey, like your typical slate grey. I used Vallejo dark grey, London grey and light grey for that. But on this grey here, this is much more of a greeny grey. I actually used German field grey World War II for that. So that's given some variation on the greys. And then we've got some browns. So we've got a couple of different browns. On the drummer here we have a nice mid brown, that's starting with the dark rust base coat on that one. And then we've got a nice dark red brown. So if we compare the two, they're both quite dark, but you can tell the difference, and they're very nice colours. But then we've got a nice yellow brown as well. That's using Vallejo English uniform and khaki grey on those. So they're the different browns and greys. They're mixed in with some reds as well, again different varying shades of red, and again it all adds up to make a nice varied look to your unit. It's you know, it's a good idea to add some variety when you're doing, especially periods like English Civil War. With other periods like Napoleonic, French for example, if they were in full dress, they're much more likely to be uniformly similar. But then again, on the other hand, French campaign dress can be quite varied as well. So experiment with your variations of colour for a more interesting looking unit. So now moving on to the buff. The buff is very similar in theory to the other colours. We've got a nice bright buff on the officer, then the standard bearer a nice mid buff for his buff coat there, and then we've also got a dark buff. Sorry, no, the standard bearer is the dark buff, the sergeant is the mid buff there. So I'm only using 3 different buffs, but again it's enough to give a nice varied look to the unit. And the important thing to think about as well is, do I want the guy to have the same colour buff jacket as well as buff straps, buff gloves, buff boots? If they were all the same colour, they'd merge into each other, especially the belts with the buff coats, because the contrast, even if you leave black, I mean this one here has got a dark buff coat with the mid buff straps, and that's enough to be able to just make the straps stand out a bit more, and that is much more pleasing to the eye than if you was having to look a bit harder to see the straps if they were the same colour. The hats are again various browns and greys, similar to the trousers. The boots are much darker leather colour. I could have gone with the same buffs as the coats and straps, but I think it's nicer if they have a nice dark leather. There's 3 different leather browns. We've got this dark one here, that's the darkest one. Then we've got a mid one here, and then we've got a yellowish one there. Now they're all based off the same browns that I showed off before, but they've got a darker undercoat, so they don't mix with the trousers. Like, you can tell the difference even if they have got the same colour base, if you understand me. The wood is a nice dark mahogany wood. I always, especially on muskets, I prefer to go for the darker browns. For standards, again, the darker browns, but if I was doing something more like a spear or a javelin, I think a creamy brown is much nicer. The metallics are base coated with this colour here. This is just known as gunmetal. Nice metallic silver with a wash of Games Workshop Badab Black or Nuln oil. You can also dry brush the silver with a lighter silver such as this one here. That helps them stand out. And also you might find that you want to put some rust on or make them look a bit rusty, so I'd advise mixing up a very dark brown and making a sort of a wash or a stain out of it and going over your silver with that after you've washed it already with black. And you can always do some extra silver highlights if you put too much on. So that's some basic colour theory and some ideas about my colour choices on these. If you want to hear more thoughts, or if you like this video and you want to see more similar to this, then let me know in the comments below. If you want to commission us, send us an email at artmasterstudio@hotmail.co.uk. Visit our website, artmasterstudio.co.uk. Join our Facebook group, Artmaster Studio. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall see you next time.